If you're struggling with depression, raise a hand. If you're struggling with anxiety, raise your other hand. If you're struggling and trying to figure out whether your anxiety or depression is as a result of a demonic influence, sin, or just human nature, then just raise your hands. Okay? I want to help you navigate this because it can be messy for a lot of people, especially when you don't have the knowledge to explain what you're going through. And I firmly believe that knowledge is important, because if we have knowledge, then we have understanding. And if we have understanding, then we have clarity. And if we have clarity, then we can mobilize. And when we don't have that information that we need, we stay in a place where we feel stuck. So a lot of what we're seeing that is manifesting in the earth today started in the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve disobeyed God. Sometimes when we go back to the Garden of Eden, we tend to kind of like fixate on that particular point in time and what Adam and Eve did. But we never really sit down to reflect or even consider the things that happened throughout generations as a result of that decision. Now, for the people who always say, well, I don't care whatever you say, but everything that is happening on this earth came from a spiritual background. And I'm not here to deny that. I'm not here to argue that. That is indeed true. And that spiritual thing is when sin entered the earth and contaminated everything. Sin is like a rot, and everything that it made contact with got corrupted. When God told man to go forth and multiply and steward after the things of the earth, he did not take back that mandate from them when they disobeyed. They were still tasked with that responsibility. But instead of doing it in the way that God had designed man to be, sin-free, they're now doing it contaminated by sin. The first example that we have of the manifestation of sin is actually Cain and his brother. From that, we saw murder, shame, jealousy, and so many more things. Society is a canvas portraying the heart of humanity after sin had corrupted it. So now sin is a part of human reality. What that looks like is everything within the context of society, the institutions that we've made, the way that we relate with people, the dysfunction that we're seeing in family, the suffering, the pain, all of this can affect your mental health. And because we live in a world where we see a lot of violence and experience a lot of abandonment, illness, and trauma, and so many things, those things can leave an imprint on who you are. So it will affect the way that you think. It will affect your nervous system. It will affect your outlook on life and the world. And because of that, a lot of us have different lived experiences that will affect our mental health. It doesn't have to be that you are actively performing acts of sin, but simply because we exist in a world where sin is, there are a lot of things that are going to affect us. But because we have God, we are able to navigate through those lived experiences, not just in our personal lives, but also within society as a whole. But if you want to know more about this topic, I do have a podcast called The Social Room on Spotify, Amazon, and iHeartRadio, and so many more platforms where I talk about this in length. So if you're interested, just tell me in the comments podcast, and I will send you the link.